Hey, this is Ashley. It's been forever and a day since I've done anything for my YouTube channel, but real life's gotten away. But I'm home a lot more now, especially being a new stay-at-home mommy. So today I will be discussing the film Before We Go. It was directed and it stars Chris Evans, who I feel is a very underrated actor. A lot of people know him as Captain America in the Marvel Avengers movies, but he's done other films like The Losers, Push, What's Your Number? I know another film that I thought was amazing that he did was Snowpiercer. It's visually a masterpiece, and it's a pretty crazy story. If you get a chance to watch that film of his, also you should watch that. It's probably on Netflix still. But anyways, this film Before We Go debuted at the 2014 Toronto Film Festival last September. Some writers of the film are Ronald Bass. I know he did other films like Entrapment, Playing My Best Friend's Wedding, and Rain Man. Other writers on the film are Chris Schaefer, Paul McNair. They did Playing It Cool, which is which explains the connection to Chris Evans. And now I'm starting to ramble. So basically, the premise of the movie: a young woman named Brooke, who was supposed to be traveling back to Boston, is robbed at Grand Central Station, and she's stranded. So there she comes across a struggling jazz musician named Nick Vaughn, and he's willing to help a hand and try to get her back to Boston. And along the way, they embark on this nocturnal journey that kind of reminds you of the movie Before Sunrise. But of course, Brooke's character, she's naturally abrasive towards Nick's gallant efforts, but I felt his character was very interesting because he was still willing to go out of his way to help her find her way home, despite having his own romantic issues and his own heavy heart. Naturally, throughout the night, there are different hijinks and stuff. Nick actually tries to attempt to get her purse by going to a French shop in Chinatown, but ends up getting punched in the face. Then later on in the night, they pretend to be musical entertainment at an upscale party to try to get cab fare for her to go back to Boston. And then eventually they end up at another party, which kind of draws you into Nick's story because he's been trying to avoid an ex-girlfriend at that particular party. And from there, we learn both characters, Nick and Brooke, have romantic woes. Basically, Brooke needs to get back to Boston. Sorry, trying to fix the screen. Basically, Brooke needs to get back to Boston to save her marriage. And you also learn that Nick has his own issues. He has an agonizing impasse that can affect an important audition that he actually has the next day for this fictional jazz musician. But as the night progresses, they begin to face their problems and they realize that a future may lie within each other. And even though, I guess one criticism is that even though like the characters may seem like thinly visualized, I still feel like Nick's character is very charming and resourceful in his efforts to assist Brooke, and the chemistry between the two characters are likable because there's an underwritten understanding, and they have a great rapport. Like their back and forth at first is a little shaky, but as the movie progresses, it becomes like the rapport between them is cute, and it's like you can see that you would think that they've known each other for years, although they just met that night. And I wouldn't say their connection to each other is instant, but it makes it somewhat credible, and you can see that they do have a connection with each other. And even though it's not necessarily I can't talk. It's not necessarily a classic love story. They still have these discussions about love and fate and fighting for love and dealing with problems that could happen in any relationship. Like, I like the film, especially since the things that they're both going through, everybody's gone through. Like, I'm trying not to give too much away, but basically, like I said, Brooke is trying to save her marriage because her husband's cheating, and just how she discusses her feelings and the way of finding out and just going back and forth of what she should do. Anybody that's been in that position, if you love somebody enough, you go through all these emotions, and it's kind of hard to, if you really care for somebody, you have to like discuss if it's worth fighting for. So I felt a connection with her feelings towards that because especially anybody that's been cheated on. And then I also felt sympathetic to Nick's situation because I've also been in that position to where basically his issues with the ex-girlfriend, with her leaving him, and there's a connection with like the audition that he's going to the next day. Basically he was trying to go for her, but then as you learn that those two may or may not ever be getting back together, so he basically learns that in order for his life to improve, he should be doing it for himself, not another person. And I think anybody that's loved somebody so much and has been dumped has been in that crossroads. I know I have, so that's why I felt a connection to that too. So that, I think that's why I kind of like the movie, because those two are going through romantic woes, but it's like woes that's relatable to anybody that's been in a relationship. I guess the only complaint I have is the cinematography. Like in the beginning, the camera work is a little shaky. But the cinematographer on the film made it work. The limber camera work helps bridge a love story with the night locations, which some people may complain are a little ambiguous, but there could be reasons behind it. I felt like it wasn't overrated and didn't use overrated locations that can go with any story in New York. Although I thought it was kind of cool that they used Cup and Saucer, that diner, because I've been there many a time when I used to live in the city. Overall, I thought it was a decent story. Like I said, it's not a classic love story. Some people may felt like it ripped off Before Sunrise, but I think it was a nod to movies like that, because there aren't a lot of romantic movies that are like that anymore. And I kind of like the way it ended, because it was kind of open-ended. You don't know if they'll ever see each other again. You don't know if there's a future with them, but I like how it left it open-ended, but in the way it ended, you still felt like they had a connection to each other. And like I said, I thought it was a decent film. If you get a chance, you can find it on, I think it's definitely on iTunes. That's how I came across it. You can get it through Amazon. I think it's getting released, I want to say, I'm not sure if it's the end of August or in September in theater, like limited theaters, but if you get a chance to watch it, you definitely should. It was a good first effort for Chris Evans. I've seen worse efforts, and hopefully this will be a good learning experience for him. And like I said, I'm a fan of his work anyway, but I thought it was a decent film, and I'm actually excited because I'm actually trying to meet him in September for Salt Lake City Comic Con. Like, I actually convinced my husband to throw down money, and we're actually going to go, so I'm pretty excited about that. So like I said, if you get a chance to watch the film, you definitely should.